Welcome to Creatives in Quarantine. I'm Tiwana Floyd, your host. This week, I speak with Broadway stage, television, and film actress Nidra Sous la Terre. If you've ever wanted to know the plight of the working actor, you'll appreciate this conversation as we talk about sustainability, livelihood, trials and tribulations, the rewards of being an actor, and the nobility to heal humanity with a single performance.
We met on Eric's, oh my God, I forgot the name of it. Damon.
Yep, Damon.
And I was like, that was before I moved here. So that was 2005 when I moved here. So we must have did that in 2004?
Yeah, it was either 2003 or 2004, because I remember it was pretty shortly after we finished that film that I remember you leaving. And I was like, no, I just made a new friend and she's leaving.
Right. And then you were a graduate. You were finishing, was it your MFA at?
My MFA, yep, at the Actor Studio. I finished in 2005.
Wow. Well, I did maybe that, because I came to a show. I thought it was your thesis performance.
Oh, maybe?
I did, yeah.
Was it way on the west side?
You know, I don't remember where it was. I just remember, I was definitely there. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It was like I don't remember the play, but I know like were you demonized or something?
Yes, it was This Bird of Dawning Singeth All Night Long by Philip Hayes Dean.
Okay.
I did it with my now good friend Pernell Walker. And it was a 2-person play, and it was basically like this sort of nightmare play.
Right, yeah.
About this young, sort of disconnected, well-to-do Black woman having a late night visitor, which ended up being this huge, like, sort of menace, like her biggest fear, right? And her like idealized view of what Blackness meant. But she was this very stereotypical mammy-like character that like came through her, basically burst into her apartment and like terrorized her. It's a crazy play.
Actually, I would like to see that now.
Me, right?
Yeah, that's pretty.
Me too.
Right. Well, it's going to be relevant for a good while because it is. Wow. So you are known mostly creatively for.
Oh, I don't know. Maybe I should ask you. I feel like I always meet people and they go, "Oh, you're an actor. What have you done?" And I'm like, "Okay." I think right now what I hear the most is Orange Is the New Black and Jessica Jones.
Okay. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
That's what I hear the most. And then in like the theater community in New York, especially the Black theater community, it's mostly a play called The House That Will Not Stand by our beloved Marcus Gardley.
Okay, great.
Mm-hmm.
So an actress.
Yes.
An actress.
Yes.
But you have many creative outlets.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I am also an acting professor at Pace University in at Pace School of Performing Arts, and I'm currently in the film and television department there. And I've also been writing, which most people would not know me as a writer, but I have been writing off and on for the past 8 years. Yeah. More so going, what is this craft? Let me read all the books that I possibly can so that I can claim the title of writer. And sort of know technically and structurally what I'm doing. So I've been working on a pilot about mass incarceration and reentry for about 8 years. Wow. And a few other projects. And yeah, had a film that did really well on the festival circuit called First Baptist. That is also now a pilot. And singing and dancing is also a thing. And yeah, I love it all.
Yeah. Yeah, because I've kept track of your career and been watching you, thank goodness for social media. It allows us to stay some form of connected.
Yes.
I've been well aware that you are a writer as well. And I think First Baptist, what is that character's name? Felicia, yes.
Felicia James, that is her name. She still lives. She is inside of me, and hopefully we will see more of her soon.
Hopefully too, yeah, because I was, I do improv, and so character work is a big part of that, as well as acting. But Felicia James is somebody that the world needs to see. I feel like I know her.
We all know her.
Oh,
and I honestly, like, she has sprung from what I call her my alter ego, because she is anything and everything that I want to say and express, but feel like because of societal norms, I shouldn't and I can't. And she allows me to do that. So I appreciate it. She is my Sasha Fierce. So I don't know. I think we all have a little bit of her in us.
Right. And so what's the impetus for writing First Baptist?
What was the impetus?
Mm-hmm.
It was actually another actor. So I did a musical a while ago in the New York Musical Theater Festival. Mm-hmm. And one of the actors had such a beautiful personality and amazing presence that I just remember sitting in the dressing room going, I have to write something for him.
That's a dream.
Yeah. And I wasn't a writer. I didn't know what the heck I was doing, but I was just like, his story and just who he was, I was like, I want to write something for this guy. So I did. It was a short. It went through about 18 drafts as I learned exactly how to write. Mm-hmm. And then he ended up getting a Broadway show and was too busy to shoot. So I had to recast him with Isaiah Johnson, who is a genius of an actor. Mm-hmm. And he played the lead in that short. And all the other characters just kind of came out of my experience growing up in the Southern Baptist Church, and my family being from the South. I just took a lot of my inspiration from that.
Right. I bet the characters write themselves because the characters are so rich in the church.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I think what happened, at least for me, my experience of the church is the reason why there are such rich characters in the Southern Baptist Church, at least the one that I grew up in, is that it's so obvious that most of the characters live a dichotomous life. Mm-hmm. You can tell that they're in the church and they're a certain person, but then when they leave, they're probably somebody else at home and with their family. And and the church is just to bring all of those types of dichotomous people together with music and dramatics and a spiritual experience is just, it's theater.
It is theater. I think, like, if I think about because I grew up with going to my grandmother's church. She's been there before she departed. She had been going there since my mother was little. Church in Harlem on 147th Street. And I would just be more enamored by the people that were around. Mm-hmm. And the music is good. I don't remember the sermons too much, as a kid. As I got older, I understood that. But I remember the sermons, the people. And I remember there was this one woman who would always catch the Holy Ghost. And I said to my grandmother, I said, how come she's the only one to catch the Holy Ghost? Because I didn't know. Why is she so fortunate? My grandmother's like...
Right, child, you'll learn.
Yeah, exactly.
Child, there's always that one.
Always. Now I'm in a spiritual center where it's not like it's like what you call a Catholic. It's not a Catholic church where people are just very pristine, but people don't have the Holy Ghost in a spiritual center, and I'm like, interesting. And so one year we did a a revelation where we go away, and then one person started to catch it, and I'm in the choir and I'm watching. I'm like, how they gonna handle this? Because we don't get these things.
We don't do this.
We don't do this here. How they gonna? Oh, he acting up. Parent sister.
What did they do?
They nicely surrounded him and they kind of escorted him out a little bit, but not like took him out of the place, but just like took him to a place to relax and get air or whatever. But yeah,
it's interesting. I think a lot of that is rooted in our ancestry. And so when we now having to be in so many situations of assimilation, we now are, sometimes I find myself in spiritual circles where it is one is very comfortable and used to the idea of catching the spirit and feeling spiritually and physically free. And then there's this other space, Roman Catholicism, that feels, I went to Catholic school for many years, so it's such an opposite experience. And so there's this other sort of realm of religion that is just the opposite. It feels conservative and held in and private.
Yes.
And I think as African Americans, sometimes we find ourselves in the middle, having to be in a few different religious and spiritual spaces. So yeah, it's it's always interesting to see how people respond to that, what I experience as freedom.
Absolutely. Yeah. I remember my first time going to a Pentecostal church. I was in my first year of college, and by the time they got done with us, all stuff like we were at the altar, up spread, screaming, shouting, and like, what the heck just happened? But what was liberation experience, because that's all they do.
Yes.
They want that energy to come and be free.
Yes.
Who knows if it shifted something for the rest of my life? Probably did. But yeah.
We need that. I think as African peoples and as human beings, we all need that release and that spiritual connection.
Right.
And we so very seldom get it.
Exactly. Steve Jobs, I was listening to his autobiography years ago before he died, and apparently in his, I guess, hippie days, in his youth, he was in India. He would take these guttural screaming classes, and that sounds great. To release gutturally,
yeah,
a room full of other people, which is kind of like we do in acting classes, but but for those of us who don't act, to be able to release that pent up energy is a treat.
Absolutely. Probably staves off plenty of disease and depression and all of that.
Exactly.
Being able to sort of exorcise energy from the body. Yeah, I had a friend who recently has been through a lot of tragedy in a very truncated short amount of time. She lost her husband suddenly in a falling accident, and then a few months after that, she was diagnosed with breast cancer, and then went through months of chemotherapy, and then went through radiation, and then had a mastectomy. And it's been a long, broken-hearted journey. And she said, one night, Nidra, I just had to go to an empty lot and just let out that guttural, grieving scream. She said, I hadn't given myself that gift, and I didn't realize how much I needed it until I did it. Yeah.
How does she know to do that? Instinctually?
Instinctually, and I think she has been on a crazy spiritual journey for the past several years, but especially in the past year and a half, since she's been experiencing all of this trauma, and she has been very invested in her own healing. And the more we are in tune with how to heal ourselves, the more our instinct starts to take over in that arena. So I think she just, because she had been so in tune with mind, body, spirit, she just knew, like, I need to go scream.
That's right. The message came and said, "Go get up out of here." That lot, yeah. And so you've written. Well, I was about to say Sunday Best.
First Baptist.
Frankly, you got me. So you wrote that, but you also said that there was a pilot also. Oh, it's going to turn into a pilot?
Yes. Well, it actually started out as a feature film. A friend of mine randomly called me many years ago and said, look, Sundance has asked me if I know any screenwriters who have scripts that they want to submit to their screenwriters lab. And I was like, I'm really flattered. I'm not a screenwriter. I was thinking this to myself, I've only written a short. And even then I didn't know what I was doing. But I thought, I've had this idea about a script that has to do with mass incarceration. And this will be a good opportunity for me to get the script out of my head and on the paper. And he was like, all right, cool, let's do it in 9 days. And at the time I was doing a new show. And I was like, okay. So in rehearsals during every break, I'm like at my laptop, typing out pages and just to get it out. Of course, I didn't get into the lab, honestly, didn't know what I was doing again at the time.
Right.
And then I just kept learning, kept revising, and it eventually became a pilot. Everyone who read it kept saying, this is a TV show. This is a TV show.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I don't know how to write TV shows. I'm not going to do a TV show.
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually I was like, oh, this is a TV show. The world is too big in what I'm writing for it to just be a feature film.
Right.
So I made it into a series, into a pilot.
Okay.
And then I had a few readings. I would always just gather my friends and say, please and thank you. I will give you a little bit of change, or I'll give you some snacks.
Right.
I would love to hear this out
too.
loud. Mm-hmm. So I did at least 3 or 4 readings, and I'm many drafts, close to 20. And it is now at the point where I've just finished a series Bible, and I have a draft that I'm really excited about. And there's a production company that is interested in taking it on. So we'll see what happens with it. I'm determined for it to do something because I put a lot of time and energy and research into it. Lots of emotional labor when you write about mass incarceration and reentry, because you're learning all of the stories of oppression, and mostly of Black men.
Yeah.
So it's been tough, but it's been enlightening, and it's a labor of love.
See, and so, Spirit has a way of setting you up just when you need to be set up, as you have this person come and approach you and to get you ready for this thing, but really it's for something else down the line.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And here we are, with so much talk about mass incarceration and, with Ava DuVernay's 13th, and then now seeing For Life on ABC. And that show is really great to watch.
Yeah.
A true story. But also, the way the networks operate is once something does well, they're thirsty for more of those.
Yes.
So here it is that you are ready, and it makes sense that there's somebody that's interested in it.
Yes,
yeah.
It is ridiculously timely.
Yeah.
And it kind of has been for the past few years. And so a part of me has been like, I got to hurry and get this out before this idea in the ether, someone else just grabs it up.
Yeah.
And so it's been a huge exercise in patience as you watch all of these shows and documentaries start to roll out. And you're like, I've been writing this for the past almost 10 years. Like, give me a second, just give me, let me, because I've become so passionate about it that I feel like, man, I hope and pray that I'm able to share this with the universe. So we shall see.
It is
I'm doing my best to make sure that it is not yet another story of seeing Black and brown men and women behind bars. Right. It is actually more about reentry.
I love
than
that.
anything else.
And that's a fresh position to take, because let me see, what was I just watching and they were just talking about that? It'll come to me, but we don't get to see that side. Tijuana Jackson. I don't know if you caught Romney Malco's new show, Tijuana Jackson.
Oh, right. No, I haven't. Should I?
It's really well done. It's really well done. I did not know he was playing this character for 12 years on YouTube, but
me neither.
What drew me to it was seeing the interview on the Breakfast Club, and he talking about the journey that it took to where he was about to go the studio route, and because they wanted to own so much of it or whatever, and he declined and decided he was going to do it his way, and then quarantine hit, and it would have wound up, instead of being a big major film release, it would have wound up on television anyway. So he made his decision to take it and do platforms. He has full ownership. Well, for the most part, yeah, because he wrote it, directed it, edited it, acted, and produced it. And it's really funny and well done. And he doesn't, there are no missing pieces to it. It's you'll be rewatching it over and over, and it's funny. It's well done. But anyway, I say that there's he's re-entering the world coming from prison, and he's a motivational speaker, which is hilarious.
Yeah.
In his own right.
Right. I love that. And I think we're in such an empowering space now as artists, that what feels like a punishment to some artists during this time is like, I believe, is the beginning of liberation. At least I hope that that's what it is.
I was having this conversation with somebody else yesterday. I don't know how things have been happening in New York, probably the same, but at the onset of the quarantine, there was all of these self-tapes, send us self-tapes of auditions and, whatever. And at first I was into it because finally we're getting access. And then after a while, it was like, wait a minute, what? I'm tired. I don't know what's going on in the world. And now I'm trying to do all these self-tapes for what? Nothing's happening.
Honey. Literally, sorry, go ahead.
I unsubscribed.
Yeah, maybe I need to join that bandwagon because yesterday I just spent all day finishing up an 11-page self-tape. And every once in a while during quarantine, I've gotten them, right? I'll get a self-tape maybe like every 2-3 weeks.
Yeah.
So it's not a whole lot, but when they happen, it's like a tornado goes through your apartment. Because I don't have a self-tape setup that's just there all the time. You know what I mean? I got to move furniture. I got to bring out the ring light. I got to set up the laptop and get it at the right position and put the phone in thing and turn it on silent and get a reader and memorize my line. Like it is, I'm preaching to the choir. It is a full production.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at these 11 pages when I got the audition and I was like, they need to pay us for this. Like we are being an entire crew right now. Just for a chance. Just for an audition.
Right. I know when I say that I'm collecting all of my hours so I can get into IIT.
Yes.
Whatever else, DGA, whatever else. I'm just trying to do that. But what you're talking about, I think, is different because this is with a purpose. I'm talking about the self-tapes where it's just like the casting directors are like, well, let's just see. As opposed to an actual audition, like a real.
Right.
So that, I'm on board with, but just to kind of be doing it to maybe help them not be bored. I don't know what the impetus is. And it's not all casting directors, but it was just that busy work at the time.
Yeah, and I think maybe even a little bit of hope mixed with denial that we actually should just sit down and take a break because ain't nobody working right now, But crazy enough, people are kind of working now. A lot of voiceover stuff is happening. There's some commercial shoots happening.
Yes.
And now, of course, in New York, they've opened up the floodgates for production again. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, how it goes. So how did you get to where you are right now in your career? How'd you get here?
Oh, what a question. Okay, I have a short word answer, and then maybe I'll expand on that.
Okay.
Tenacity.
Yes. Talk about
That's it. I know so many people who are 10 times more talented, who just kind of decided this journey isn't for me. I'm going to go elsewhere. I know people who who struggled to find ways to deal with the emotional warfare that this business can be. And they thought, I don't want to have to negotiate with that. And they left. I think to some degree, there are some people that look at me and other people who are still in it that may be working consistently and go, they just there because they look like this, or they're just there because blank, blank, blank. Now, let's be clear, really pretty people have a much easier time booking work in art, or people who have a really unique look.
That's right.
They have a very different experience.
That's right.
But if they are beautiful and they are doing really well, it is not just because they're beautiful.
Talk about it.
They have worked their butts off. And they have also struggled. I know this now for a fact that every single successful person I see in Hollywood has struggled. Right. And they have had so much rejection. Yes. And they just, every once in a while we'll hear the story. Oh, such and such auditioned for this role 20 times and they finally got it. But they don't tell you the years and years of struggle. They don't tell you all the times their feelings got hurt or they went home crying or hungry or whatever. And so for me, it really has, it's been tenacity. It's me going, I believe so strongly that this craft is a part of my journey. And I'm not done yet. People keep, and many times that I said I was done, there was always some angel in my life that said, you're not done. You got to keep doing this. You're supposed to be doing this. So many good friends and family that just kept me in it. And they were able to fortify me in a way that now I can give myself that pep talk and go, it's a struggle, but what has God shown you over and over again, that the struggle is for a reason. And as long as you stay in it, there's going to be another peak.
That's right.
And there'll be another valley.
Yeah.
And now I know what it is when I hit it. The valley doesn't mean it's time to go. This valley doesn't mean this is not for me. It means this is on the way to the next peak. You need this valley,
I love that. Yeah. There's a few people that talk about it. Not many of us do. Sometimes, and I think for many years, I suffered with being with the shame of the struggle and not wanting people to worry about me. So didn't really express that. I remember I was dating this guy who I'd known him for years. He had moved to California a year before I did. We dated in New York. And he was at my house one day and we were talking about something and the cable, no. He wasn't at my house. We were talking and he was talking about some cable show and I was like, oh, I cut my cable off. And he got quiet because he worked in corporate America. So that made no sense. And he's like, what do you mean you cut off your cable? I said, I can't afford it. And if I would have to sacrifice too much to get cable and I'd rather that time and money and effort to go towards my art. And that's when he knew that I was serious. For him, that was the barometer of you being serious. And like, that's nothing. Like cutting your cable, that's nothing. Sometimes you have to move in with people. Sometimes you have to sleep on couches. Sometimes, so we don't really get to talk about that roads or, very often. I think in our intimate relationships, or most times we're just talking amongst each other and sharing these grievances.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that talking amongst each other is part of our free therapy, because it's so rare that someone else in another industry would truly understand. A lot of people, even in our own industry who aren't actors, don't understand. It's like, unless you go through a similar journey, you don't really get what this struggle is. It's been glamorized so much. Family members and friends who don't have any experience in the industry think of it in a certain way, and it's challenging to get to explain it. It's challenging to explain the struggle and the dedication that we have to it. A part of this is it's just a thought that just flew into my mind, so I'm just going to say it. A part of what I try to tell some of my students as far as like how to prepare their family or how to talk to their family about being an actor and artist, because not a lot of many families are supportive, but they may not understand the journey. They're like, if you don't get famous real quick, or I don't know, it's been 5-10 years, this ain't really happening for you. You sure you want to stay, And I always have to remind people just how integral actors are to all of our lives. We overlook them every day. We consume them almost every day. And we need them for our processing and our healing. Television, film, sometimes even commercials have been therapy for us without even knowing.
Exactly.
Actors have, through their characters, have set examples for us. They have showed us how to move through certain situations.
That's right.
Like it's a really noble, I strongly believe it's one of the most noble artistic endeavors anyone can be a part of. Even the training in and of itself begs of us to do excavation work that your average citizen would never do.
That is
and we're right. Yeah. And we're doing that work to be in service to the craft so that we can give it to you so that you can consume it. Mm-hmm. Like, that's some monk level stuff, you know? Yeah. Anyway.
No, that's a great way.
Sorry for my tangent.
No, because we needed to hear that. And I appreciate that you are one of the teachers, because I didn't get that information in my training, how to talk to family members or friends outside of it who say, oh, what have I seen you in lately? Or would I have seen you in anything? Or how long are you gonna do this? Well, you should get a plan B because you've been doing this for, all those things. And it took me a long time to know how to just educate as opposed to maybe respond with an attack, because I feel attacked, and so I'm going to respond the same way. So it took me a long time to get to that. So to have a teacher to explain that to anybody who's coming up now, that's worth a lot of gold, because I think that will help people to stay the course, as opposed to what we're talking about is people leave because of those exterior ideals of what people think it should be.
Absolutely. Which are mostly false. Completely. And I mean, you and I, all of us were fed what an actor's life is and looks like since we were children. Yeah. And then you get into it and you're like, wait a second. I'm not Angelina. I'm not Viola yet, even though her story in and of itself has been, and I'm sure Angelina's has too, no shade, but
right.
Yeah, all that we see is where they are now.
Exactly. I was just watching
the shiny.
I forgot the name of it. It's something called Remix. It's on Netflix, but it has to do with stylists. Misa, who was Puff Daddy's one of his first son's mother, but she's also a stylist. And the part that I cherish the most about that documentary is when she talked about the point where she had to make a choice in staying on her journey as a stylist when nothing was happening, or give up her house. And she chose to give up her house and had to make it work. And I'm like, yeah, nobody talks about that part. You think we out here just sensational and living our best lives. And no, there are these moments.
There are absolutely those moments. Yeah, I say this often when I talk to people about my sort of journey as an actor and my life testimony thus far. And there was absolutely a period of time where I was on Medicaid, food stamps, unemployment, all at the same time, and singing in the subway.
Yeah.
And I remember one day just going, I don't have any more money for food, so I've been wanting to do a cleanse for a really long time. So this is the time for me to go on a cleanse. I'm gonna use all my Subway singing money to buy some lemons. And I did the master cleanse for 10 days.
You literally made lemonade out of lemons.
Yeah. Ciao. Way to bring it full circle. Thank you. Thank you. And even still, that wasn't rock bottom. A lot of people don't know this, Tiwana, and I don't know if I ever told you, I somehow saw this light when I was in that darkness of had this great idea to sell the breakdowns, which most people for those who are not in the industry, you have a lot of people watching this who aren't in the industry, right?
Okay, probably.
It's basically a publication that comes out every single day, and it lets managers and agents know what's casting.
Right.
Actors do not have access to these breakdowns, which in and of itself is a crazy idea. It's like not being able to see what jobs are available to you.
Yeah.
Making that information exclusive and making people have to pay for it, right? So it already puts actors at a disadvantage, and we feel like we're missing out because we're like, I paid tens of thousands of dollars to learn this craft, and now you're not letting me see the job postings. In order for me to see the job postings, I have to have representation.
Exactly.
Which is, as most actors know, is a hard thing to get, at least in the beginning. Yeah. And so most actors, especially years ago, were finding other ways to get access to the breakdowns.
That's right.
And most actors had that access. They just found a friend of a friend who would email them, right? I happened to find someone who would do that. Some people would charge for the breakdown. Some people would just send them for free.
Yeah.
The person I got them from was charging. And when I was at my lowest point, I was like, maybe I should just start selling them too, because that'll be income. I have to pay my bills. And little did I know you could actually get in real trouble for this, because all I knew was that everybody did it.
Right. Fast
forward a few years down the line, I get sued for lots of money that I did not have.
It goes very hard on the people he feels infringe upon his copyright. Yeah.
Yes. And especially then, they were cracking down a lot.
Okay.
And that, I would say, was my lowest point, because I was already struggling financially. And then to get that notification. Whew.
Was it by an email or was it by a letter? Were you served?
I got served papers. They had been trying to reach me. I was doing a show at the time in Midtown, making pennies, literally pennies. Yeah. And I got a phone call, like, hey, someone's been looking for you. And I was like, who's this? What are you? And I immediately started feeling like sick, like nauseous. And,
absolutely. Right.
And I was like, what do you mean? Like, everybody does this. And they were like, well, they're cracking down now. And then I didn't hear anything for a few days. So I thought, well, maybe they'll leave me alone. And then I opened my mailbox one day and the papers were there. It was a nightmare. And then all the money that I made for the next few years would just go to that. I finally started working after then, and I was like, oh, I can finally pay off my student loans. But it went to another wealthy white man.
All his money.
Yes. Yep.
Yes. I've heard the stories I've heard stories of this. You're the first person that I know personally. But yeah, I've heard that he really persecutes at the highest extent that he can possibly go for. So,
yep.
Well, but here you are now.
Here I am now. Past that, thank God. Lesson learned.
Right.
I will never do anything illegal again, other than jaywalking.
Right. Yeah. Right. And there, because there's a lesson in that too. This is spirit reminding you don't have to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and at the time, it really did feel like a gift, a revelation. Like, oh, here's where I can make some money. But that was not the answer. But at the time, I really didn't know what else to do.
I understand that. This reminds me, and I can say this to you because I've been mostly speaking to LA people, so they won't really understand this, but you would know. I would, at one point, right before I left New York, the impetus for me moving to LA, I had left New York and had moved in with my now ex-boyfriend. And he was from Jersey City, so I lived in Jersey City because I thought, oh, this is so much closer than the Bronx, the Northeast Bronx, where it takes me almost an hour to 2 hours to commute in, or take 20 minutes on the PATH train.
Mm-hmm.
And then we broke up after maybe not even a year. We've been together for maybe 5 years at that point, but once we moved in together, that's when it got real. And so then so we realized maybe this is not going to work after all. So then I stayed in Jersey City because one, it was affordable, and two, because it was close to the city. And same thing, I was struggling. I lost my job, but I welcomed that, but just struggling. And so I used to, when I would go into the city, I would go to Actors Connection because I would catch the bus at Port Authority, so it was walking distance. Actors Connection, I would go in their bathroom and I would load up on toilet paper. I probably shouldn't say this. They're probably gonna be like,
"No, girl, I've been there stealing toilet paper."
Stealing toilet paper.
Yep.
To this day, when I see open rolls of toilet paper somewhere, I'm like, "Oh, you don't need it."
It's so true, though. I mean, I'm like, they don't need this. It's a roll. It's 5 cents to them, but it's everything to me.
It's everything. And and I have my spots, and some other things. But yeah, and also being in LA, away from family now, so then the hustle becomes even more recognized. But the times of food stamps, you just cannot have pride around that. You want this dream, you want to stay here, or you want to move home, so you just make it work.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
since we've been in quarantine, how are you staying creative if you're staying creative? Because there's the wrong way to do.
You know, I've been really blessed in quarantine. I will say that, like really blessed. I think a part of that is just because one, it's been a blessing, and two, because of my perspective that I work on every day.
Yeah.
I have one endeavor. I'm a little bit afraid to say this out loud because it kind of makes it real, and it also feels like a huge endeavor and almost impossible, but I'm going to say it anyway, because I've been having these conversations for a few years about the state of Black theater, especially in New York.
Yes.
And I always come to this thought, why don't we have our own Black off-Broadway space? We just don't. We never have. There's no contemporary Black theater. All the ones that are in existence started in the 60s and 70s, and a lot of them are in financial turmoil or they don't have their own space.
Right.
And so I am starting that endeavor.
Love it.
Which feels huge. But again, it's been an idea that I've had that I just haven't had the time or haven't made the time for until quarantine. So I'm grateful for that. In addition, like I said, I just finished my series Bible. So there were all these projects swirling around in my mind that now I've had the time to settle and actually dedicate time and space to. As I said earlier, I'm coming back to Fallujah, my alter ego at some point, because now I have time to shoot with her.
Yeah.
I've started an Instagram account called Professor Nidra, because I wanted another outlet to reach young audiences that perhaps weren't in the classroom with me, but I felt like I want to teach as many people as possible. How can I do that? The internet. So I'm very slowly working on that. And luckily there's still random auditions and bookings happening. So I have been very, very blessed and grateful.
Wonderful. And that's a testament to you not having the need or feel that you have to make something happen. So then, the energy can just flow as it would, as opposed to
yes.
You can just that clench, it comes to flow.
Yeah, definitely. And I think all of us have access to that. And perhaps the ones who are still feeling a bit scared and threatened by the full stop of theater and the lull, I think, in TV and film is that they're still subscribing to the idea that someone has to employ them right now.
Yes.
But every single one of us, yeah, go ahead.
Say that again. Say that again. They are
I think still subscribing to the idea that someone has to employ them, which I am not going to knock, because all of my adult life, I have been employed by somebody. And we need income.
We do. But
that does not have to be your story. Like you don't have to choose that for the rest of your life. You can set yourself up to, yes, by the way, I'm still employed because I'm a full-time professor. So let me put that out there. But we can dedicate some of our time, because we are creatives, to our own creative endeavors. And this has allowed us the time to do that, I think. It's challenging when the world is moving for us to have that time, because you've got to be employed, to sort of survive in this capitalistic system.
And also, auditions are rampant. And so we just don't have enough time to steal away to do that. So yeah, I agree with you. The quarantine, for those who recognize the beauty, the gift of the stillness, it really is a treat to be able to get things done. As you were talking about creating a Black theater space, of course, the first thing that came to my mind was the National Black Theater. And thinking, all the people that came out of that school.
Yes.
That are still pretty much working today. And I just recently watched, is it A Soldier Story, which I probably saw as a kid, so I didn't get the importance of it. But watching it now as an adult and also as an actor, those actors.
History. Absolute history and a lot of history in those walls at NBT.
Right.
And I don't know how much you know about what's happening with them now, but Jonathan McCrory has been so generous with his time because I wanted to have conversations as I started this endeavor with Black theaters that are already in existence, that have been doing the work, that have their own spaces, which again, I think is only NBT at this point. And they are currently renovating their entire space. It's a huge renovation. So they've been a bit, transient and moving around. But they are not an off-Broadway theater that's centrally located, which is a part of what I'm hoping for, that we can have like a modern complex that has a few different theaters in it, one of them being classified as off-Broadway, something like the Public, like the Signature, like Playwrights Horizons, you know. And this idea began from multiple conversations that I've had with people in the business, frustrated because they felt like Black writers were being plucked out of grad school. There's a formula that happens, right? While they're in school, some white person or professor recognizes a Black writer as a special one.
That's right.
They get the word out to the existing theater entities. They come in and ask this playwright for their scripts. The playwright gets really excited and honored and sends all their stuff to these off-Broadway theaters, and somebody tries to pluck them real quick. And they go, we're going to produce your work. Some of them haven't even gotten out of grad school yet. So then they start workshopping their Blackest play they can find, usually with Black or slave or something in the title. And they're in a room workshopping it with white people, oftentimes with a white female director at the helm. And they're doing these roundtables with all these Black actors, and I've been in many of them. And then the theater goes, okay, it's ready. It's usually not. And then they produce it for wealthy white audiences. And then we come and see the play and we go, what the mother freak is happening?
Appalled. Right.
Appalled. And sometimes just saddened that this could have been healing for us. This could have been for us. I think it started out for us, and then it took a turn somewhere and somebody else got their hands on it, and then somebody else got their hands on it. And now it's this thing, and the white people are loving it.
We're always just entertainment for them anyway. Just entertainment. Yeah.
Absolutely. But for us, I believe it has to be more. I believe the arts are a part of our healing. It's a part of like our evolution and how we survive. And there are so few entities now that are feeding that talent back into our own community. We're selling it to other people for their entertainment. But our community needs us too. So that's why I'm a part of the biggest reason why I'm so invested in this idea is that I'm curious, how can we create a new model? A theater that is just as grand, that is just as successful, but we are catering to a Black audience. Like, how does that happen? Because economically speaking, we are a little bit lower on the totem pole, especially in New York City, than wealthy and white. There's a big, huge economic gap. So that's a part of the research that I'm doing now. Is this something that's even viable? Will it be able to survive? Will you be able to sustain Black audience and sustain a space like this that costs millions of dollars a year? But you look at models like Tyler Perry, like a show in New York called Platanos and Collard Greens, and you're like, the audience is there.
The audience is there.
You just have to know how to market to them, to research them, and to hook them and keep them there. And that's, I believe, the key is filling a need, finding where they need to be healed, where they need to laugh, and bringing that to them, gifting that to them.
And also in an economical way, because the tickets on Broadway are unaffordable.
They're completely not accessible.
Yes, right.
Yeah, and it's I think a clear message that this is not for you. I didn't make this for you. I made this to make money. And I made it so that wealthy people could consume it.
I have a colleague who She started with a show here at Second City. She wrote it. It ran for several years, and then I went to Chicago and did some time there, and then finally they brought it to Off-Broadway. And she's a white woman, and so to hear what she had to deal with to try to keep her story pure, but more importantly, the participants, the actors in it, because it was heavy on improv. And not a lot of improvisers in New York. And so she was trying to, like, these people already did the show. We just need to get some of them a local hire, you know, and they were not trying to hear that. And basically it was like, sweetheart, just let us, we know what we're doing here, you know, it's a thing, because it's about numbers.
Yes.
And it had I think it had a short run, but still, you know, thankfully for her, she does have that accolade, but they turned it into what they think is sellable and viable for their market, with their numbers in mind. And it's really not about the artist or the story. But.
Yeah. And you're right. It really does, at the end of the day, boil down to someone's opinion and sometimes someone's instinct. And that someone is overwhelmingly white and male.
Yeah.
And they go, what stories am I interested in? What do I think will sell? You know, a lot of times it's not like they're coming to the table with a formula and they go, does this fit into this formula? Does that mean it'll sell? No, they're like, do I like this? Do I think my audience will like this? Great. We, you know, or has someone already come to the table with this and it's proven to work? Is this similar to that other show? Great. We'll do it.
Yeah. Exactly. So in this quarantine, has there been anything that you've watched, ate, listened to, podcast, book, food, or whatever, song that's giving you inspiration?
Oh, so many things. I've just recently started listening to Michelle Obama's podcast. I believe she only has 2 episodes out now. It's fantastic and just continues to give me hope and feel seen and loved throughout all of this. I also subscribe to a couple of podcast stations on Spotify that are just inspirational speeches.
Okay.
And sometimes I'll roll over in the morning, do my meditation, do my journal, and then press play. And I'll just let it run as I'm going about my morning. And it keeps me focused. It keeps me clear. And it keeps me disciplined. I'm a Capricorn, so I kind of thrive on discipline and order. I'm currently, so many things, Tiwana. I don't know. I just looked over to my left, so I'll say this. One of my really good friends, Jonice Abbott-Pratt, just sent me this card deck. Can you see that?
The Starseed Oracle.
The Starseed Oracle.
Okay.
And I basically did my own reading the other day. But it sort of helped me to connect to what my idea of home and love is. I mean, my friends have really come through in a wonderful way. I think we've all been supporting each other, but I've gotten a few books in the mail and a few inspirational videos sent my way. So I've been munching on all of it.
Right. And what's one of the podcasts that you listen to for inspirational speeches?
You know what? I'm going to go to it right now so that I can get the name right for you. There's one station that I've currently been listening to a lot. It's just called Inspirational Speeches. I went to Spotify and searched just that, Inspirational Speeches. Okay. And this one is by a user named Ben Durstong. It's Bender, Bender.
Okay.
Steong. Okay.
I'm going to include that in the link below. Yeah, you mentioned Capricorn. As soon as when you were talking about creating an off-Broadway theater, I'm like, if anybody can do it, it's a Capricorn. It's one thing I know for sure about a Capricorn. I'll say it. Whew. It is done.
It gets done. I hope you know what? Your lips to God's ears.
It's true. That is my experience. There's not one Capricorn that I know. I know men and women, and yeah.
Yep. I think we are producers. We really we get excited and feel purposeful and meaningful, and we feel love when we feel like we have finished something. We have done something for the day. I vacuumed. I feel amazing.
That's right. Right. How does it, and then another thing I find with Capricorns is, how do I help the world?
Yes.
So
yes, it's a being in service and being useful. And being on that deathbed, God willing, after past 100 or however long you want to live on this earth, being on that deathbed and going, I am grateful that I lived with purpose.
Thank you for watching Creatives in Quarantine. Oh my goodness, I felt so seen in this conversation with Nidra, commiserating, but also talking about the joys of what we do. Follow her on Instagram, keep up with her. Subscribe here. Really, you should share this one. Until next week, bye.